Okay, so let's summarize what we learned.
We stopped right before before the union of shame.
No, we started the whole thing. No, where is it?
1 second.
Yeah, I definitely did. Yeah. Okay, so let's get the flow here right now. So he's asking a question. It seems that the question is twofold. Number one, why is it that the Frierdiker Rebbe, when describing creation, doesn't talk about the fourth level? He speaks about Eir, Chayis, and Koyach, right? Which we explained. Another way to describe these terms, which we're familiar with, Eir is Sevev Kol Almin, and Chayis is Memala Kol Almin, and Koyach, like, so Chayis is Malchus, and Koyach is as Malchus descends into Biyah, where, as we explained, Koyach means that Hashem's investure, creative force, is not seen transparently. It's separate. Again, like the stone that's being thrown, you see that there's a force, but you don't see where it comes from. So these are the three levels of creation. We might describe it as follows. The Eir component is what creates it out of nothing, whatever we're talking about. The Chayis is what gives it its life, its unique level and station and rank and life and identity in terms of its unique, what kind of creation. Eir creates. Chayis determines what the creation is. And Koyach is like governance. It's already created, it's animated, and it's being directed. It's the least. I mean, Hashgacha Pratis. Hashgacha Pratis, God governs. But when you say God governs, what you're implicit in that is that there's a world. The world exists. It's a world. And he directs it. So it's implying that Hashgacha Pratis is a sense of independence. And that's how we live. We live with a sense of independence. But then we open our eyes and we see God governing. Hashgacha Pratis. So that's Koyach. Because the starting point here is that there's something to govern. All right, so we might put it this way. I hope this is correct. I think it's correct. That the Eir, again, everything has three components. So far, that adds a fourth. But so far in the Maamorim, three components that are three levels of God's involvement that are responsible for its existence. The Eir, its very existence out of nothing. That's the most miraculous and infinite component, that I exist out of nothing. The Chayis is the particular level we speak about, higher level, lower level. So there's symptom there, and there's properties and attributes. All that's determined by this level of Chayis. And then Koyach is, once created, God continues to govern and direct. Is that somewhat clear? It's all one Eibishter. The difference is in our perception. In we see him more, in Chayis we see him a little less, and in Koyach we see him even less. But as far as God is concerned, it's all him equally. Creating out of nothing, giving it its unique characteristic and form and level, determining what level and rank, angel, elephant, stone, Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiya, all these different levels. And then God governs. From his perspective, it's all him. But from our perspective, we see him, we can appreciate intellectually him more in the miracle of existence. That's the Eir. Something out of nothing is a stupendous, impossible to imagine feat. Chayis already, it's there. Now, what level is it? That's more imaginable. And Koyach is entirely imagined. Here I am, and I'm being directed. It's all from our perspective that we have these different designations. But that's by divine design that we should have these different designations, because God wants a dir b'tachtonim. Tachtonim means a lower world that doesn't know him, or is concealed, and struggles with that, and then finally reveals him level by level, awareness by awareness, appreciation by appreciation. Koyach, chayis, oir. The question of the mind is a twofold question now. But there's a fourth component that each creature has, that's part of its identity, that is also part of the spiritual source, and that's the name. Every creature has a name. There's everything has a name. There's some book or movie, something like that. Rings a bell. Something, every name. No, the Holocaust had every victim has a name. Yeah. Somebody coined that phrase. At any rate, you're going to say something.
I was going to ask that when the Maamorim is going through all the shemus and how it applies to all the nivroim and so on, is it a mashal for the Hashem's shemus? Is that what we're looking at? Like when we're saying shem, we're saying Hashem invests payef, Hashem invests his shem. Or is it just
we're not talking specifically about Hashem's names, but we could extrapolate. But the Maamorim is talking about the name Shor, V'Chamoir, Sus, and he said there's two levels of names. There's a species and there's individual name, and everybody has both. Well, human beings have both. Everything else doesn't. They're just species. It's an ox or it's a grass. Mind you, within grasses and within oxen, there are different kinds. And he said even a secular name, that's by divine providence, that also is indicative of its unique identity. So there's a twofold question here. The first question is, if we're talking about the creative process, then why aren't you talking about the shame? The fact that God also confers a name, and each creature has a name, and the name is part of its chayis. That was Adam Arishan's great insight, that he was able to see L'mayla Shin Vav Reish Shor, this chayis, this energy of Shinva, and he said, that's this ox. And the angels couldn't look at Shin Vav Reish to understand what that meant. So it's all part of the chayis. It's a lower level, it would seem. Now, that's the first question. We're not going to lower or higher. It's another component, a fourth component of the divine energies involved in creating existence, the infinite power, the highest level, the koyach level, and the name level. The letters, the oisius, letters are divine revelation. The word oisius, the word ois, means to reveal, as in osa boiker, morning has come. Why is this not mentioned? Now, that's one question. It seems the flip side of the question is, and as we look at what a shame is, it is the opposite of oir, because a shame conceals and oir reveals. I'm not sure b'yosa einem moving what exactly is not understood. I'm not sure in the second paragraph, b'yosa einem moving. I start off saying the end of the Isay was Sarich Lahavin. How does this all fit? The fact that there's also the shemus, how does this fit with everything that Oir Chayis and Koyach? I mean, how does it fit? It's more the question, why doesn't he mention it? That's why I'm phrasing the question. It's not exactly explicit that way in the Maamorim. It's Eigzeh Masim. How does it fit? Seemingly the question is, why is it omitted? The Bemis, I don't think that's exactly the way he's asking the question, because that doesn't explain the B'yosa in a moving. What's B'yosa in a moving? He doesn't talk about shemus. And this is an independent question. Independent of the Maamorim. I don't know. What's the independent question of the Maamorim? That Oir reveals and shame conceals. That what exactly is the inner movement here? What's the, I don't know. So yes, there's the union of a name which conceals, that's the final creative component that each creature has, and that completely conceals, and it takes odd audition to see, how a name contributes to the identity of whatever we're speaking about. What's the inner movement? Just because Eidos Gila and Shem, that's what, Eidos Gila and Shem conceals.
It seems like it's there because the shame brings out the mahus.
That's the answer at the end. That's the answer at the end. That's not what he's saying in this whole list at all. The end is going to say, Adrab, the Shem is the Inyan Atzmi, and so on. The mile of the Shem. He's bringing out the Chsona in this whole paragraph. What's the not understood? That's a concealing aspect of creation. Yes, you don't know anything from a name unless you can probe its depth. No, wasn't the Shayla. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what he means by exactly what he's asking. You look, here's a Behemshach Lazem Bavai, it's in the middle here. So in Tanya, he says that the Chais of the Nivraim is the names of which were they called. Aval Behemshach Elul Bavai. Yeah, that's that. Okay, seeing it now. So what's you see that just right there, 2/3 down. What is he asking? The question seems to be that in Tanya, he brings out the Helem of the name as part of the creative process, but the Maamorim is stressing Oyer and Gilui. Same question. He's ignoring. So maybe the pshat of the question is, why does he ignore Shem? It's completely opposite. What he's ignoring is something completely opposite to what he's saying. Okay, all right, friends, we got the question. We'll repeat the question. The question is, the Maamorim does not talk about the Shem property, and moreover, the Shem property, which is integral to creation, is the opposite of everything the Maamorim talks about creation does, which is Oyer and Gilui. That's the question. Okay, simple. Are we clear? He doesn't mention it, Aleph, and Beis, it's bestire, because the whole Maamorim is stressing, everybody can see the Oyer v'chayis, the infiniteness within creation. Your eyes are open, you can see the energy, the life force, and the infinite creatures that exist, and so on. But Hashem completely conceals. So it's the opposite of everything the Maamorim is telling us about the creative force. So he doesn't mention it, and B, it's the opposite.
So how far is it from Koyach? It's one level further.
Yeah, it's lower. It's lower. Koyach, you see there's a force, he doesn't know where it comes from. But he said shame is even a daimim. Shame applies even to a daimim that doesn't show any life force at all. Koyach says there's something doing this. You don't know what, you got to discover. What propelled the stone to go through the air? So Koyach points, it's not dovuk, it's not, dovuk means you don't have to search. You have to, chayis and oir, if you see that component of creation, you know there's a creator. If you appreciate creation, something out of nothing, it's got to be a creator. If you look at the chayis, the complex life that is in life, that points to a creator, divine design. Koyach, thing is moving, it's a very low level of expression. It's governance, it went this way, it went that way. You have to discern where did this come from. You discover comes from the Eibishter. But a daimim, and even a daimim has a name. That was the whole emphasis here. Even an inanimate object has a name. Inanimate means daimim silent. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't call your attention. There's no movement to say where's it coming from. So it's complete concealment. And everything has a name. So the question is, it seems, that if the Maamorim is talking about creation, he ignores the inyan of shame, A, and B, everything is saying the Maamorim is that it reveals, but the daimim, which also has a name, does not reveal.
So why can't you say that the Maamorim is speaking about only expression, and shame is not expression, and therefore it's not mentioned?
It's like, no, because the question is really, it seems, on the doimim. V'ata machayis kulam, he insists, it's every level of creation. V'ata, there's gilui. No, there isn't. There's doimim where there's no gilui, and all it has is a name. It's all it has. You don't see you don't see chayis, and you don't see koyach. That distills the question. So here he's saying, Vata machayis kulam, even in the shoil, the lowest levels, he's emphasizing gilui. Wait a minute. Everything has a name, even a daimim. And what's the daimim? The silent there's no gili there at all. It doesn't say the word they zogen it. They don't say I come from somewhere. Daimim doesn't say that. Movement does. Animated things do. Life does, but not the inanimate. But yet the maim is vata machayis kulam. He's stressing everything. There's oyer and gilui. No, there isn't. There's the union of a shame, and where do you see that most powerfully, most concealingly, is in the name of inanimate objects, which do not express, they zog in it, they don't express godliness at all.
What does that have to do with the shame of the inanimate object? It's the fact that it's an inanimate object. The union of shame.
So the union of shame is saying, you don't see the chayis there, but it has a name, and there is a chayis. Right. But you don't see it, and that's why and even the name you still don't see it. Malachim didn't. That requires seichel to look at the name and see. The name conveys the chayis. But it's behelim. Everything else immediately points to created to one degree or the other. Movement points to chayis points to. If you appreciate creation out of nothing, that point, only God can do that. That's the conclusion. Points to God. The daimim doesn't. Comes the Rizal and says, you should know the daimim has a name and there's a chayis. It is. That's not so simple to, the name conceals it. You need other marishim. You need to understand what the Oisi are and the whole limud to understand. Shin Vav Reish, that's the chayis, or Evan, Aleph Beis Nun, that's the chayis of the stone. A little easier to see it with the ox because it's a living entity and it's complex. But that's why he kvetched the daimim. Every niver says a shira, but then there's a Rabbi Alamis Vestairim that there's no shira, there's no song. What's that? That's the daim, and they have a name. That's its chayis. But its chayis there is completely concealed. It has to be deciphered. And yet the Maamorim is saying v'ata machayis kulam. The Maamorim is stressing all mishtalshus and the highest ad Maamorim ad leketz and matad in tachlis gilui. You can see God. Seems to be the shayla. In Mesach Shemayim Shemot v'tzir Shel Yineka Shegilui Achayis Elik b'Shemayim. Not just a Shemayim Misaprim Kvedel relate God's glory. Even Ba'aretz and even the She'er Lachayis is Begilui. It's not Begilui. Not in Daimim. And actually not in the name component of everything. The name component of everything, the Chayis is not Begilui. So now we're getting questions to clear. Why does he not talk about it? But you're saying in moving. It's his omission of not talking about the shame is the opposite of what he was saying. He's talking about in the Maamorim that you can see God everywhere. Shame says you can't, and you don't. He just ignores it. So it's one thing to ignore. He's not speaking about that inyan. Okay, he's not speaking about shame. He's not mentioning that level. But you're saying the moving is, but you're saying that there's gilui. The union of the shame is saying there's no gilui. There are things that there's daimim, inanimate objects don't point to God at all, overtly. They zog it. They don't sing shira. You agree? That's the pshat. I think that's the pshat.
Is shame on something else here? Is it shame really the tool through which the Eibishter is Mahava and Mechaya and gives Kaya? And then we see in how it comes out that the Ishabus and the Chayes and the Koyach is completely concealed by the shame, depending on
Yeah,
what
so you're
shame
asking the same
The
question.
shame is Mitzayim, really, the Ishabus and the Chayes.
But the time is it conceals it.
Yeah, by giving it a different, each thing a different seer.
Yeah, okay, you're saying the same question. You're saying it the same way.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
So the reality is, when it comes to creation, and where do you see this most? In the inanimate object, there is no Gilui. It's all concealed and all that's there is the name. And the name, which is the part of the Chayes, doesn't reveal. You need to be an Adam edition to understand what a name is and how it reveals. Angels couldn't see in a name anything. So in simple language, the Maamorim is insisting God's revealed everywhere, and the Rebbe is asking is not. Certainly not in the inanimate world. They don't sing and cry and or sing there's a creator. They're silent. They say, I am, and that's the end of the story. Complete Helen. And the name of everything is the same. It's the Helen component. Okay, let's go further. The answer. Let's read and try and understand. Yeah, Izvav. The Kudus Abir and the explanation is Shayin Shachayis Hanivraim Hugam in Hashem. Why does Hashem create in such a way, employing letters and name? Like he explains in Tanya, everything has a name, and then the combination of the letters, etc. The letters of the Sodom and Moros. We were just saying till now that a name is lower and conceals, etc. But there is a maila in a name over Ur. How's it going to answer the question why he doesn't mention it? We'll see at the end. We'll try and see. But let's understand the maila of a name, even though it's the most external tag. L'havdol elef havdolah, Shakespeare said, what's in a name? It's just a label. You don't need a name if you live in a desert island. No one's calling you. So it's external. Yet there's a big maila in the name over Ur, meaning where God is revealing his creative force. There's a maila where he conceals himself in the letters, the divine letters, over where he reveals himself. How so? As the Rebbe explains, the Maamorim Razal says in Medrash, the Rebbe should travel the distance of 500 years. That's from heaven to earth. There's a distance of 500 years travel. This is explained in Kabbalah Chassidus, where this 500-year number comes from. But at any rate, that's not the point of the Maamorim here. But why did he do that? Why did God descend from heaven, as it were, to this world? Because he wanted to acquire a name. He wanted to be known. He wanted to make a name for himself, quite simply. That creation should know him. What do we see in this Maamorim Chazal? That creation is motivated by God's desire for a shame daike, a name. That's so important. That's the whole motive. Yeah, because all truth always comes in the irony and the paradox, and here we hit it. A name is rooted deeper than Ur. Ur is the natural revelation of who I am. My name is rooted deeper than the way I express myself. That's a huge paradox. Let's explore it. Because revelation, light, even though revelation expresses the source, the luminary, and it's the very luminary itself that's being revealed. Again, in our moshel, when I'm expressing myself, just naturally expressing myself. So that's me. But whatever I'm doing at a given moment, teaching, learning, sleeping, eating, that's the totality of me? No. That's an expression of me in this particular moment. And it changes as I express myself and engage different things. Mashen can shame, but the name is a constant. Your name doesn't change, dependent on what you're engaged in, where you are, what you're doing, what you're experiencing, no. Your name is permanent. And that's the paradox. The name says nothing about me. What does he do? What's he like? Don't know. That's his name. So it's nivdol, it's separate from the person, concealing. It doesn't tell you anything about the nature of the person. He even told me his first name is Yossi. There's 1,000 Yossis in the world. Still don't know who this person is. No idea. Still, paradox of paradox. This external tag and label is rooted in the essence, which is why I just pointed out it doesn't change. Now, what I'm doing, it's still me. So this unchangingness is actually a reflection of my essence that's unchanging. All it is, I'm expressing myself in different things. But the name paradoxically expresses the fundamentally I. Not I do, I experience, I think, I feel, I understand, but I. Therefore, the name draws on the essence. Let's continue in the Maamorim. We'll add more, perhaps, insight. We see when a person, God forbid, faints. What's going on? He's withdrawn. He's just lying there like a log of wood. There's no expression of life in any way. He's just there. He's alive. He's there. That's it. So what happens? So we see, you whisper his name in his ear. This can summon, can draw on the essence. What happens is that all of his expression has withdrawn just to the core existence. The I am, he's still alive. So by calling the name, we're touching that essence and we're summoning it forth. Express yourself. The mind re-engage, the heart re-engage, everything re-engage in the body. We can restore his soul. It doesn't explain why here, but just says the statement. By drawing on the name, by calling a name, we draw on the essence. The explanation perhaps is a name is the core identity. In what sense? He said this the other day in Shul. It used to be once upon a time when people would ask in a kid, like, they want to know who this person is. They would say, Vemens bist du? Whose are you? Where do you belong? That's the name. We don't give ourselves a name. It's kind of designated. Although a person's a balabas in his name, but that's a separate story. You can change it, actually. But even having said that, the idea of a name is, it's an identity of belonging. To use an example, not perfect, a Canadian. A Canadian. You live in Canada, so you have this name Canadian. So your passport Canadian. It's part of your name. That's an essential identity, relatively speaking. Deeper than that is, of course, immeasurably deeper is, you're a Jew. That's your tag. That's what the world is screaming. Jew, Jew, Jew. Your name expresses that. Famous story that Rabbi quotes. It's the Alter Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek was a child. Alter Rebbe brought him up because his mother had died. And Alter Rebbe, he was sitting on the Tzemach Tzedek, sitting in his Zayda's lap. And the Alter Rebbe said to him, "Where's Zayda?" So the Tzemach Tzedek, I don't know exactly the story, but pointed like this. He said, "No, that's Zayda's nose." It's Zayda's nose. Then he touched his beard. It's Zayda's beard. Maybe a third thing, and he got a similar answer. Okay, the child understood where this is going nowhere. So he hops off his Zayda's lap, and he's playing in the corner. And then he gives a call, Zayda. Now Rebbe turned to him, he said, "Oh, that's Zayda." In that moment, when he was called by his name, now Rebbe turned. What did he turn with? Turned with his nose, with his beard, with his heart, with his mind. He turned with his totality. That moment encapsulated him. Why? Dafka, because it didn't address a particular part of him. Nose, beard, heart, mind, intellect, emotion. Dafka, because it didn't engage a particular oir expression. It just said, you, Zayda, that because it is no revelation, so who's turning? And what am I turning with? Everything. The next second, after that turn, then the engagement starts. Love, chesed, whatever's going to flow from there. What do you want? And intellectually, what are you asking? And all kind of process then kicks in. But that moment that you're called and your attention is summoned, how is your attention summoned? Dafka, by not addressing any particular part of who you are. So how do we just get the totality of you? Here's the paradox. Just your name. That's the one that can get your attention. Zayda turned. Oh, that's Zayda. In that moment that he turned to him, again, he turned with what? Which part of him turned? Every part of his being. At that moment was turning to his grandchild. The next second, he then engages based on what that moment is. An emotional moment, whatever, a teaching moment, a practical moment. Then it gets down to oir, a specific revelation or chayas or governance, whatever the case may be. Invested more time, less time. Are you following what I'm saying? But the moment, the shame itself, here's the paradox. Dafka, because it doesn't evoke, because of the helem. Dafka, because it doesn't evoke any particular part of who you are, just your name. That's why when you turn with everything. That's the paradox of a name. Because of its helem, it draws on the essence. Because it doesn't say anything particular about you. Lots of people are called Yossi, Moishe, Chaim, David. But when you know your name is being called, you turn that moment with everything that you are. That moment is boom, you're there in totality beyond a particular engagement that only involves a part of you. Right? To be continued tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem. What's tomorrow? It's Thursday, Friday. We'll finish the Maamorim Be'ezrat Hashem on Friday, I guess.